Hello, everyone. My name is Harley Seelbinder. Welcome to the Harley Seelbinder Podcast. I'm here to talk today about a topic that is a sensitive one. It's hard to even bring up to people that you're close with. It's a topic that I feel needs to be discussed more. So, it's taking a little bit of courage to make this video, but I'd say might as well. I got nothing better to do. So, many people become uncomfortable when this topic is brought up. Some people find it reprehensible, some people are indifferent, and some people think that it is a net good. The topic I'm bringing to the table today is porn. I'm going to try my best to be as nuanced as possible when discussing this topic, and by nuanced I mean I want to take in all perspectives from all sides so that I'm going to try to step out of myself and look at perspectives from other places, other people, just from all other sources. So I'm going to try my best to do that. And I come from a Christian background, so I'm biased in one direction, but I'm going to try my best to be as nuanced as possible. So as I've been researching for this topic, I've realized that it's really way more complex than I even realized, which happens to be the case anytime I look into something, which just shows the complexity of the world, which is an optimistic thing, which means there's so much to learn. So I guess there's a lot to learn in this topic for us all. So thought might as well talk about it. So first off, I will give my experience. So back when I was 11 or 12, I was at a restaurant with my parents, and they happened to be doing this raffle, giveaway. My parents entered in their names, and my mom, I think, won the biggest item in the whole raffle, which was like an iPad 1, the first generation, back in 2011 or something. I was like 10 or 11 or 12. I don't fully remember the date, but my brother and I were the main people to use that iPad, as my parents were at work and didn't really use it. But I found so many useful things to do on that iPad. I found out that there's a calculator, a calendar feature, a voice recording feature. I'd record different situations and replay them. Then I realized there was an internet feature, and I found out so many things while searching the internet. So many things that are good, but also so many things that aren't so good. I started to become curious at maybe a year or two after that about I just became curious about what a naked female body looks like. And so I just looked it up, naked girls search. And right before my eyes was a plethora of images, videos, words that I'd never seen or heard of before, and it got me very curious. And so I just kept looking and kept seeing all kinds of things and learning different lingo and realizing what people do when they're adults. And this was before I could even fully comprehend what I was doing. It was more out of just innocent curiosity, and this is an instance where the idea of curiosity killed the cat seems to be a true idea, but so I didn't really realize what I was doing at that age, and I think I looked at it just out of curiosity, but then as the years went on, I looked into it more and more, and I think freshman year was the first year that I actually masturbated to the porn that I was looking at. And that made me way more interested in watching porn. It became way more addictive to me, because then I could have this dopamine release, this stress relief, and this kind of like this escape from reality for a few minutes each day. I became a daily user pretty quickly after I found out that masturbation was a thing in freshman year of high school. And it became a daily habit for a while, probably many years. And I remember feeling like doing what I was doing was something that I shouldn't bring up to people, because it was so frowned upon in my Kalamazoo Christian environment. I went to school from preschool to 12th grade at Kalamazoo Christian, which was a pretty good place, but there was also cons, but many pros, many cons, so everything's complex. But I feel like the main argument I heard when going through that middle school age and high school, maybe even freshman and sophomore year age, like at Kalamazoo Christian, the main arguments I would hear were God doesn't want you to masturbate. He's going to frown upon you. It's a sin. You should stop. And to me, those arguments really didn't cut it for me. I never had heard God talk, and I'd never seen God, and I didn't even know what God meant. So I continued using porn. And so, but then I remember senior year being in a youth group environment, and one of the youth pastors saying to me, or just saying in front of the whole group, that porn can ruin relationships. He kind of explained his personal experience with how it almost ruined his relationship with his wife, which was his fiance or girlfriend back in the day, and how he found many practical reasons why stopping porn would be good. And that really started to make me think, like, this is actually a serious problem. I should probably stop, or I should at least talk to some more people about it. I remember my one friend, who's still a great friend to today, and I talked about, hey, let's form a pact here. Let's try to stop using porn or reduce our usage of porn, and let's try to get a streak going of stopping, and also tell each other when we do fail. And that worked pretty well. I was like, yeah, I don't want my relationship that I have in the future sometime to be ruined. But then as the few months went on, I could maybe go a month or two without any porn, but then I just fall back into it again, and I started to justify to myself, Harley, you're single right now, you don't have a girlfriend, so what's the harm? And like, I just let that justification kind of take over in my brain, and I just went into a phase of not really caring, and that's probably a bad thing, but it is what happened. And that whole idea of, I'm not dating someone now, so I'll be able to stop when I'm dating someone, that's like the most naive statement I ever said. And it's proven to me now, where like, I've met the girl that I'm dating today 8 months ago, and before we start dating, I explained to her that was probably the biggest thing I don't like about myself, was my addiction to porn. And she was glad that I explained it to her and was honest about it, but she was also pretty hurt and was skeptical that she should date me for that reason. But she decided to date me for a few reasons, I guess, because of my honesty, and because I said I would try to stop and try to be honest with her about my progress. And I realized that, well, when I first met her, I went a good 3 months or 4 months without any porn, and then I fell into the trap, and then I used a few times, and then I told her, and went another month or two, and it's like this cycle of a month or two or a few weeks or sometimes daily. It's just, I'm not, the chains are still here, and I'm trying my best to get out of those chains, and I'm realizing now that talking about it with more people might be the solution. So that's why I'm actually recording this podcast. But I then started going to a counselor probably only a month ago for many reasons, because I feel like everyone should go to a counselor, because an objective third-party person to hear your problems and flush and wrestle through them with you and give you advice. I'm like, that seems like a great idea for anyone. So I decided to go there for that reason and a few other reasons, and porn being another reason, because I was like, I need to hear what his argument might be for stopping porn. And so I asked him, and his answer to this question was actually pretty inspiring, and it actually inspired me to record this episode. So I'll explain what he said to me, and here's what he said. He said that he had started at around a similar age that I did, around like 12 or 13 or something, and he was in a similar situation where his parents were pretty looked down on it heavily for religious reasons, which makes sense, but really doesn't make sense to a 13 or 12 or 16-year-old. It really doesn't, in my opinion. So he started to give me some scientific data, and I first brought up this statistic that I had heard, which is that in marriages when there's no porn usage, the probability that there is a divorce is much lower than in marriages where there's any porn usage at all. And the more porn usage there is, the higher probability of divorce or of separation. And so that was a statistic that scared me in some ways. It scared me in a really good way. And so I brought that up to him. And then he brought up the statistic that, he brought up some neuroscience, which really just, I didn't know that much about. I'd heard some arguments, but it never really set in until I heard him say it, where he was like, he explained how there's nerve endings in the brain which accept the different chemicals that are occurring in your brain. I'm not a neuroscientist, so I'm not the best at explaining, but he said that you have X amount of neural receptors that take in the chemicals that are in your brain, and you start off with X amount, and porn is something that floods your brain with so much stimulation, so much oxytocin, dopamine, norepinephrine, all these different chemicals that in moderation are excellent and are really good things, but porn is something that stimulates you every second. You see a new image, you see a new video, you scroll to the next page, just all this novelty going into your brain, novel information that stimulates you even more. And soon enough, your brain's like, look at all of these chemicals in your brain. Why do I need 10, or that's just an example, why do I need 10 of these receptors that take in the chemicals and receive them when only 2 or 3 or 4 can accept this giant amount of chemicals that your brain is producing? So biologically, your brain just says, let's get rid of a few of those. Those nerve endings aren't necessary because you can get all of these chemicals received into your brain through just only 2 or 3 or 4 nerve endings. And he was like, he explained how him personally, he started to realize, like, life was, like, without porn, life was more gray. Without that insane stimulation of so many chemicals in your brain, he couldn't find joy, happiness, or peace. And scientifically, it was because a few of his nerve receptors had died off because there were no need for them, because he kept stimulating himself with porn, which is exactly what I've been doing. And he explained how when he stopped finally, his fiance said, you either stop porn or I end this relationship because I can't do it, which is understandable. So he said that for the first month or 2 or 3 or 4, life was somewhat like hell. Life was very gray. He only had a few nerve receptors, and when you're living just doing daily activities, even sex, you're just not stimulated in the same way that you are when you're looking at porn. That's just a fact. So when you only have 2 nerve receptors in your brain, that's just an example. There's many more than 2, but and you're only getting a smaller amount of those chemicals being produced, you're just not going to be receiving as many into your nerve endings, and you won't be feeling as much happiness, joy, or just peace. And so he said that, but there's an optimistic side to this story, which is those nerve receptors can grow back. Your brain can adapt. Your brain will say, oh, we haven't had a flood of insane amounts of stimulation in a long time. We need to start growing back some more receptors so that we can absorb as many chemicals as we can, and neurochemicals. And so he explained how life got better and better after a certain point of stopping. The beginning of the stopping session of porn was pretty painful, but then towards the end, he said, not towards the end, but maybe even just a few months later, he started to feel way better about himself. He had a lot more joy. He could get joy just from the small things. He didn't need a giant amount of stimulation. And so that gave me some motivation. And so that was interesting. And the whole idea of monogamy really interests me. The idea of seeing that there are many, many options out there for a romantic partner, and then sacrificing for one only and being like, all right, there's many other attractive people around, but I'm sacrificing. I'm choosing you and I'm sticking to you, and there's nothing that's going to happen that's going to make me stop sticking from you. There's a few things that would make me stop, but you put your foot down on one person, you have the discipline to say no to anyone else. The Jordan Peterson says, the goal is to become attractive to as many people as possible, but only settle for one person. And that's a goal of mine. But porn just rips through that monogamy that I have with my girlfriend, because I now can see hundreds or thousands or more of other women, other people that stimulate me in ways that only she should. And so I can see how that can truly ruin a relationship, because monogamy doesn't exist anymore. It is now polygamy, and polygamy is something that I find reprehensible. And so I find it reprehensible in principle, but in reality I am a polygamist, and so I need to stop. So that's another interesting fact. But so before I recorded this, I had to write down some thoughts. I had to really figure out what I even think and what my experience was. And I was like, I started to realize it's really, really complex topic. There's some people out there who are religiously no porn, no masturbation, wait till marriage. And there's some people who are like, porn, masturbation, doesn't really matter. You're an ape and you gotta it's a natural urge, biological urge. You might as well pleasure yourself. And I'm like, I don't know if either of those sides are fully correct. There's such an ambiguous center ground for some of these topics. Porn and masturbation are different, but they're tied in together. So first off, I'll start with porn, where we live in an age where you can access as much pornography as you possibly could want within 2 clicks, anywhere, anytime, and you can search for whatever you want and be stimulated for as long as you want. And that was not possible 20, 30 years ago. 30, 40, 50 years ago, you had to go drive to the store that sells magazines, look the cashier in the eye, give them cash, take time out of your day to drive there, try to hide the physical newspaper that you just bought. It's like there's a lot more barriers that you have to jump through to get to porn back in the 50s and 60s, whereas now you can access it in about 5 seconds from anywhere. And that's no excuse to use porn and say, oh, it's so easy, so that's my excuse. That's a pathetic excuse, in my opinion. So that's just an interesting thing to recognize, is that we live in an age where these tools of technology that we have in front of us are so positive. They help us connect with many people. They help us learn so many things, but they also have a dual edge. There's a negative side. There's a negative aspect to the technology that we have. So I'm realizing that I live in an age where I have to be more disciplined than the people before me because of the ease of accessibility. And so I'm going to bring it back to the counselor. He said that there's two things one can do to help stop porn. And the two things that he said are increase accountability with people that are important to you, your loved ones, your significant other, your friends, your family. Being honest and explaining that your faults and them holding you accountable and being honest with them, that is the first thing that you have to do. And the second tip that he suggested was decreasing accessibility, which is much harder because there's your cell phone's in your pocket. I charge my phone in my room. I have a computer in my room. I have a laptop. The internet is accessible anywhere, and reducing that type of accessibility is incredibly tough. There's a few methods in which you can, but I think increasing accountability is a great first step, because if you can, without decreasing the accessibility, increase your accountability and be honest with many people, hopefully you then can decrease your usage. But not everyone works that way. The counselor didn't work that way. He had to block internet from his phone. He wasn't allowed to have a cell phone. He created his own rules. He's like, I'm not going to have a cell phone in my apartment. I'm not going to have that internet access in my apartment. And maybe I have to do that, but I don't know. I need to figure it out. And so he explained all of that, and how, like, even just porn, like, the people in the porn videos are typically trafficked. They're abused. They're coerced. They're not having a great time. They might be getting paid, but their lives are living hell. There's a lot of drug usage. There's a lot of pain involved in that. What's that department, or whatever it is, industry. And so that also helped me kind of see porn and be like, the people here are really not living that great of lives. There's a lot of painful things going on, and these women are being abused. And so why would you partake in this type of information and media? And so that's another good argument he made. So this is where, morally, when if you're trying to have a long-term monogamous relationship, porn is something that you should probably cut out. And there's a few ways that I kind of explained. The two ways: increasing accountability, decreasing accessibility. But I run into the other part of this discussion, which is masturbation. So porn is one thing, and masturbation is a second thing. And they're different things, in my opinion. They aren't the same. You can masturbate without porn, and I find that less morally reprehensible. I find that to be... I feel less shitty after I masturbate to nothing than I do masturbating to porn. And so that's an indication just for myself that, there's a difference between these two activities. But I looked up on the internet literally 20 minutes ago and searched what are the benefits of not ejaculating. And this is for men, because I'm a man and I'm just trying to figure it out. And the benefits of not ejaculating. I found many benefits that at least these few articles said. I don't know how much I trust articles. I couldn't find the scientific studies. There were a few studies, they weren't that clear. And they said that you can increase testosterone by stopping your ejaculation for a period of time. You can increase your productivity. They're making claims that your sexual life, your sex drive will be higher, and your sex experiences will be better. They explained that, those are the few claims they made. And then so it's like I searched that and I was like, maybe stopping ejaculating is a great idea. Maybe I should stop. But then trying to be as nuanced as possible, I then search into the internet. Is ejaculating healthy? How often should men ejaculate? Something along those lines. And a study from Harvard came up that said that men who ejaculate at least 20 times a month reduce their risk of prostate cancer. And there's all kinds of articles explaining that jerking off regularly helps reduce stress, helps in quite a few ways. Helps your dopamine levels, all of this kinds of stuff. And I'm like, I don't know what is right. I understand. I've kind of put my foot down on the whole morality of porn, where it's like, okay, you're watching other women, you're treating them like an object, you're ruining the relationships you have with the people in your real life, and yeah, and then I look at masturbation just alone, and I'm like, I don't see it as much of a problem. Evolutionarily, I feel like humans have masturbated for a long, long time before porn existed, and it seems to be natural. Some doctors say, "Oh, it's natural. It's you got to do it. It's a natural thing that helps all kinds of things in your life." And then you hear other people like at a church who say, "Oh, masturbation is a sin. You shouldn't be doing that." And I'm like, I don't know what is right. I am an ignorant 20-year-old, and I'm trying to figure this complex topic out. And so that's why I made this video, because I really am lost on what to do in that dimension. My goal is to stop porn. Like, I want that to be something that is no longer a habit that I have. Reading the book Atomic Habits helped me realize that instead of saying, I want to be someone who doesn't watch porn, you then switch the language to, I am someone who does not watch porn. So that when you say that to yourself, when you're tempted, your counter case to the temptation is, but I'm not someone who watches porn, so that's not something I'm going to do. Instead of, oh, I'm tempted, I don't want to watch porn. One of my goals is to stop, but I could stop tomorrow, and then you just keep doing that. Whereas if you say, I am someone who does not watch porn, it helps you show to yourself that your identity is someone who doesn't watch porn. So that's a tip I have for y'all. But I'm going to conclude this video by saying and asking the question, what do you guys think about porn? What do you guys think about masturbation? What are some tips that you have for stopping? What are your thoughts on this whole topic? Feel free to comment down below. Feel free to send me an email. I'll have my email link in the description. I really got to figure this topic out. I don't know what is right, and I'm looking forward to hearing all of your responses. It took a bit of courage to make this video, but now that I've made it, I feel at peace because A, it helped me flush through what I think on the topic. B, it's going to help maybe others think about this topic. Maybe help others see the cons of porn and why maybe they should stop. And so I hope that this was motivational to some of you, and maybe you found this useful or interesting or anything. Or if you didn't find it useful, tell me or if you didn't like it, did the video, tell me. So I'm open for all types of critiques and all types of compliments. I look forward to making more videos. If you have any other suggestions for what topics I should talk about, let me know. I'm really an open book. As you can see, my first episode seems to be an episode on porn and masturbation. So, well, I'm going to conclude this video. Thank you.